As we all know, dear friends, dear family members, India is emerging as one of the very important and powerful country in the world in the scientific contribution, in the technological contribution, in agriculture field, in electronics and electrical goods and transportation. And you know, our Minister for Road and Transportation, Sri Gadkari, has clearly pledged and promised that by 2024 Indian roads will be just like the roads of America, the most developed country. So we should know about India. We know about present India, but we should know, our students and our generation should know about the past of India. What the top scientists and what the top philosophers said about India. A 15 to 20 minute class whenever possible, just to present you the quotations of the great philosophers. Kindly share it to others. German philosopher said, Arthur Schopenhauer, he said the influence of Indian literature on our time, influence of Indian literature on our time will not be lesser than what was in the 16th century Greece influence on Renaissance. The Greek influence during the Renaissance period in the 16th century, and definitely Indian influence now is almost equal to that. One day India's wisdom will flow again on Europe. One day India's wisdom will also flow again in Europe and will totally transform our knowledge and thought. Yes, India is going to conquer the world. And as he rightly Schopenhauer said, this is what we are seeing. Albert Einstein said, we owe a lot to the Indians. We have got a lot of influence, debt towards India, who taught us to count. Indians taught us to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been possible. So India contributed for the counting, from the mathematics to everything. Albert Einstein used to carry Bhagavad Gita with him, and also Albert Einstein established a religion, namely cosmic religion, and the book of that religion is Bhagavad Gita. Albert Einstein got influenced fantastically on Indian literature. He used to say that Bhagavad Gita inspired me for all my hypotheses and theorem. I get inspiration from Bhagavad Gita. And about Albert Einstein, it used to be told, for the last 10 years of his life, Albert Einstein carried with him the Bhagavad Gita, and that's something great. T.S. Eliot, one of the very famous British playwright, literary worker, publisher, essayist, philosopher, wrote many books. He said, Indian philosophers, subtleties make most of the great European philosophers look like schoolboys. I have read it few days back. When you compare the great philosophers of Europe or other country and compare their quality and qualifications and writings with the Indian scholars, ancient Indian scholars, and their books and their write-ups, you can see that the European writers equal to schoolboys, far smaller than the real stature of Indian philosophers. 2 years I spent in the study of Sanskrit, T.S. Eliot said. 2 years I spent in the study of Sanskrit under Charles Lanman, and a year in the mazes of Patanjali's metaphysics under the guidance of James Wood. These two studies of Sanskrit and also Patanjali's Yoga Shastra left me in a state of enlightened mystification. I became an entirely novel personality, new personality after studying the Sanskrit and Patanjali's Yoga Shastra. And he learned Sanskrit under Charles Landman and also learned Patanjali's Yoga Shastra under the guidance of James Woods, not under the guidance of named Indian philosophers. Long ago I studied the ancient Indian languages. T.S. Eliot was telling. Long ago I studied the ancient Indian languages. And while I was chiefly interested at that time in philosophy, I learned Indian languages for learning the Indian philosophy. I read a little poetry too, Indian poetry too. And I know that my own poetry shows the influence of Indian thought and sensibility. He has read only little Indian poetry, but thoroughly well versed in Sanskrit and Patanjali's Yoga Shastra and Indian other languages. T.S. Eliot says that his own books has fantastic influence on Indian thoughts. And then Voltaire, F.M. Voltaire. I am convinced that everything has come down to us from the banks of Ganga. I am convinced that everything came to us from Ganga. The French philosopher, historian, enlightened author, critic, essayist, and a fantastic personality who wrote more than 2000 books and small booklets. He is convinced that all needed for the human race came from the banks of India. Astronomy, astrology, metaphysics, etc. It is very important to note that some 2500 years ago, at the least, Pythagoras went from Samos to Ganga to learn geometry, but he would certainly not have undertaken such a strange journey had the reputations of the Brahmins, science, not been long established in Europe. Pythagoras went to India because Indian knowledge was so famous. Indian astronomy, Indian mathematics, Indian geometry, these subjects were so famous and known to many of the Europeans. If that would not have been the case, Pythagoras would never have ventured to go to India. Veda was the most precious gift, Voltaire says. Francois M. Voltaire says, Vedas was the most precious gift for which the West had ever been indebted to India. The Western people, Western scholars, Western writers, Western philosophers, they are indebted to India for the Vedas. If India, whom the whole earth needs, the whole earth, the whole world, the whole scholars need India, and who alone needs no one, but India does not need anybody. India don't want anybody, Indians. Now you can see that when the war is going on between Russia and Ukraine, India is standing on her own feet, is not getting support from anybody, not bothered about other support. Any whether it is in UNO, whether it is ancient old USSR or Quad or developed country, wheresoever India is standing on her own, never expecting anything from others. But others are afraid to criticize India. Even America declared that Indian stand is correct. Our enemy Pakistan has declared that Indian stand is correct. So India does not need others. Must by that very fact be the most anciently civilized land. She must therefore have had the most ancient form of religion. The most ancient land in the world on the surface of the globe earth. India has the most ancient religion also. And others need India, but India does not need others. Francois, Voltaire, and the great French philosopher said like this. And he continued to say, we have shown how much we surpass the Indians in the courage and wickedness. The Europeans, the English people, the Americans, they have shown how much wicked they are, how much cruel they are, how much negatively courageous they are in wickedness, in cruelty. and how inferior to them, how inferior to Indians the Europeans are in wisdom, how inferior these Europeans, the British and the Americans are, how much inferior they are in the wisdom compared to Indians, how much high they stand in wickedness and cruelty and cheating and looting others. Our European nations have mutually destroyed themselves in this land. They destroyed each other. War, Second World War, First World War, and 1,000-year war, the Cross War, and everything, war, killing and murdering and dying. Our European nations have mutually destroyed themselves in this land, where we only go in search of money. We wanted money, we wanted power, we want to conquer the land, and we want to loot others, kill others, murder others, and wanted to prove that their property belongs to us. Looters, the thieves, where we only go in search of money. While the first Greeks, the people of Greek from Greek civilization, traveled to India only to instruct themselves. The Greeks came to India for learning. Greeks came to India for learning. Later, the German people and also French also flew to India for learning. And next, Arthur Schopenhauer. In the whole world, German philosopher and one of the greatest philosophers of the 19th to 20th century. And the great philosopher, scholar, scientist came to know about India through Arthur Schopenhauer. He said, in the whole world there is no study so beneficial and so elevating as that of the Upanishad. Upanishads stand unique in the top of wisdom. You learn any book, it cannot be compared with Upanishad. Upanishads are so beneficial for the human beings. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said, it has been the solace of my life. And Schopenhauer said that when I learn, when I study, when I read Upanishad, it gives consolation, elevation, upliftment, and I feel so excited when I read Upanishad. And it is the solace for my life, and it will be the solace of my death also. While facing the life, I read Upanishad, it gives solace. And I am sure when I face the death, life and death, that also I will get the solace from the Upanishad. They are the product of highest wisdom. Upanishads are the product of highest wisdom. Next line, access to the Vedas, knowing the Vedas, learning the Vedas by the Europeans, by the non-Indians. That is the greatest privilege. Learning the Vedas is the greatest privilege this century may claim over all previous centuries. When compared to previous centuries, the world started learning about our Vedas and Upanishads. That is the gift of this century. And Schopenhauer said, how entirely does the Upanishad breathe throughout the Holy Spirit of Vedas. Upanishad is the Holy Spirit of Vedas. Upanishads are the Vedantas, the essence of Vedas. It is the product of the Vedas. And the Upanishads breathe from Vedas. How is everyone who by a diligent study of Persian Latin has become familiar with the incomparable book, stirred by that spirit to the very depth of his soul? If you are learning the Persian, Latin and so on, and from there if you come to the study of Upanishads and Vedas, it's an incomparable books. You cannot compare with any other books. When you learn Vedas, when you learn Upanishad, it gives the last word about spirituality. It gives the last word about the life. It gives the soul, last word about the soul. Everything connected with the human being, the past, present and future. Sometimes these Upanishads give you in one word, sometimes in one line, sometimes in one shloka, sometimes as prose, sometimes as poetry, poem. And that stirred by that spirit to the very depth of his soul. It will be directly going to the deeper and deeper part of your soul. That is the command of Schopenhauer. And Werner Heisenberg, who discovered uncertainty principle. It is impossible to perceive two complementary properties at a time, which is the fundamental of really the quantum mechanics. And many top Western scientists, or so-called top Western scientists, they became the student of Werner Heisenberg. And Werner Heisenberg studied a lot about the Upanishad. And he had a fantastic discussion with Rabindranath Tagore about Indian philosophy and so on, about which Werner Heisenberg tells, after the conversations, after the discussions about Indian philosophy with Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, some of the ideas of quantum physics, I had a discussion with Heisenberg, had a discussion with Rabindranath Tagore. After the discussion with Tagore, quantum physics, that had seemed so crazy, so maddening, and that reality of the quantum physics could be glaringly seen and understood all of a sudden. And the discussion about Indian philosophy with Rabindranath Tagore made much more sense about the quantum physics. So Indian philosophy directly simplifying quantum physics, that was a great help for me to explain uncertainty principle and also quantum physics. So our Upanishad supporting the wonderful quantum physics. Next, about Nobel laureate, Nobel Prize winner on wave mechanics, wrote many books and put forward many theorems, Erwin Schrödinger. And some blood transfusion from India to the West is a must to save Western science from spiritual anemia. Western science should have some spirituality in that, just like Albert Einstein said, without spirituality, science is blind. Without science, spirituality or religion is lame. So blood transfusion from India is needed to enrich, to empower, to energize Western science with spirituality. Otherwise, it will also be utilized for killing and making money and looting other people in the world. So let the Western science get imbibed with the spirit, with the Upanishadic philosophy from India, so that the spiritual anemia could be erased off from the Western science. In all world, there is no kind of framework within which we can find consciousness in the plural. Nowhere in the world the consciousness, Swabodham, Prajnanam, has been given in a very singular way. Swabodham Prajnanam, Prajnanam Brahma. This is simply something we construct because of the temporal plurality of individuals. We just say that every animal is different, every human being is different, so consciousness is also different. Nonsense. Consciousness can never be different. It's Advaitam, it is simple, it's single. Consciousness is single. Maybe the animals may be different, plants may be different, trees may be different, human beings may be different, but the consciousness present in everything, that is singular. That is simple and singular. But it is false construction. The only solution to this conflict, in so far as any is available to us at all, lies in the ancient wisdom of Upanishad. Eka eva hi bhutatma bhute bhute vyavastita. Every living being has got this consciousness. Eka eva hi, that is only one. That's only unified Advaitam, not dual. Ekam sadvipraha bahuda vadanti. The knowledgeable people say in different words or different messages about the same thing which we call Aham Brahmasmi Tad Brahma Tvamasi. Vyava Pradhivi Janayan Deva Eka. The celestial bodies and also earth created by the same consciousness. That is what is discussed in Upanishad. The Western scholars still think that consciousness is plural, but Indians declared thousands and thousands of years ago in Vedas and Upanishads that consciousness is only one. It cannot be more than that. Moon is one, but reflection of moon can be many. Sun is one, the reflection in different waters of the sun may be many, but sun is one. Moon is one. Consciousness is one. It can reflect in all living and non-living beings. The earliest records, to my knowledge, date back some 2500 years. Erwin Schrödinger continued to say 2500 years more. From the early great Upanishads, the recognition Atman is equal to Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. 2025 centuries back. It's wrong, but it is about 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s centuries back. Atman is equal to Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. The personal self equals to omnipotent, all-comprehending, eternal self. Was the Indian thought considered? In India, such a thought was there thousands of years back. Far from being blasphemous, to represent the quintessence of the deepest insight into the happenings of the world. Whatever is happening in the world is the awareness and consciousness present in the cosmic system in the world. The striving of all scholars of Vedanta, the striving of all the scholars of Vedanta was, after having learned to pronounce with their lips, really to assimilate in their minds this grandest of all thoughts. The consciousness, the Jivatma is equal to Paramatma is equal to Parabrahma is equal to Mahaprabhanja Chaitanya is equal to Brahman. It is intrinsic, inherent, self-guiding, self-motivating, self-energizing awareness and consciousness present in every living and non-living being. Schrödinger says Nirvana is a state of pure blissful knowledge. It has nothing to do with the individuals. Nirvana is a state of pure blissful knowledge. It has got nothing to do with individuals. The ego, aham bhavam, ahankara, or its separation is an illusion. The awareness and consciousness present in living and non-living being cannot be separated. The goal of man is to preserve his karma and to develop it further. When man dies, his karma lives and creates for itself another career for next Janma. Erwin Schrödinger declared this Punarjanma. When the man dies, the karma will be taken and the Atma will be opting for the next body and next birth. Vedanta teaches that consciousness is singular. Veda eka eva hi bhutatma. That is only one and only one and only one and only one. Vedanta teaches that consciousness is singular. All happenings are played out in one universal consciousness, and there is no multiplicity of cells. Everything is singular, but the reflection can be multiple. Reflection can be multiple. Just like sun or moon reflect in river, in pond, in well, in the water on the roadside, and also in the paddy field, and also in a cup of tea when you are keeping in your cup. Every waters, everywhere in water the reflection can be seen. But moon is one, sun is also one. So we will continue this class tomorrow. And some more thing there, Erwin Schrödinger's messages are there. We will continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. My pranams to you. Spread it to others. Those who hate India and also those who love India. They should know what the Western scientists and scholars said about India. Because Indians are ignorant about India. We are the only people who are ignorant about our own motherland and our own heritage. Others knew better than what we know about our heritage. So it's our bound duty to spread the message. Thank you very much. My pranams to you.